Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ryan Pyle podcast. I am your host, Ryan Pyle. And yes, I am still stuck here in Istanbul. I've got an amazing guest on the show today. His name is Benjamin Chan, and Benjamin became the youngest Hong Kong-born person to climb Mount Everest when he was 19 years old. Absolutely unbelievable, and he has a fantastic story to share, and we will get into that in a few moments. But for the time being, let me just tell you that I am still here in Istanbul. I'm just entering my 8th week, and obviously the coronavirus and this COVID-19 pandemic has basically shut down global travel. And I'm unable to go back to my home in Dubai, and I'm unable to work. And I've just kind of been sitting around. And it's pretty funny because it's not funny, it's terrible, but you got to find the hilarity in everything, don't you? A few months ago when I was dreaming up how to do these podcasts, really? Leave that in. Let's let people know I can't talk. A few months ago when I was dreaming up these podcasts, I really wanted to make them timeless. I didn't really want to talk about current events. I really didn't want to talk about news or politics, but then it's just like, how can you avoid it? How can you avoid the chaos that is our world today? You can't. So here we are. I'm not thankful for the chaos of the coronavirus pandemic, but it has given me some time to sit and reflect and think and speak more to all of you, because previously I just had no time to do things like this, and now I do, and there's some benefit in maybe slowing down a little bit, and maybe once the world gets back up and running at its normal speed, I will have learned a few things from this pandemic and come out a better human being than I went in, perhaps. Wishful thinking, maybe. Wishful thinking. But yes, here in Istanbul, everything is great. For those of you who are following me on social media, you'll know that I started something called the COVID calls, which are Instagram live conversations that I'm having with my friends and other creatives in the field. And it's been wonderful connecting and staying connected with so many people and learning about how they're dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. And I really cherish everyone's time and everyone who has kind of participated in that. It's been truly wonderful. And of course, those can be, I'm doing those almost daily actually on my Instagram live, which is just at Ryan Pyle. And then of course I syndicate them on my YouTube channel, which is Ryan J. Pyle. So if you want to catch up with any of the COVID calls, that is where you can do them. And also we have lots of content on YouTube behind the scenes and full episodes of things like Tough Rides China, Tough Rides India, and Tough Rides Brazil. So, I'm getting more stuff up online, getting more stuff out into the world through YouTube and social media. And it's keeping me busy. It's giving me some kind of purpose. If you've been following me on Instagram as well, you'll notice that I rescued a baby kitten. And I might just dedicate a whole podcast to this kitten because he is amazing. A couple of weeks ago, I was sitting out on my balcony and having a whiskey. And I could hear this kitten screaming, like crying. And it was terrible. If you've ever heard a kitten cry, it's awful. And then that whole night, it just kind of cried and cried. And I was going out onto my balcony multiple times, pretty much every hour, and it was just getting worse and worse. And then I was like, man, if the mother doesn't come back overnight, if the kitten's still crying in the morning, I should do something about it. So went down in the morning and the kitten was still crying, and then I followed the cries, found it, and the little guy was maybe not even 10 days old, abandoned, no brothers, no sisters, no mother, covered in fleas, dirty, and freezing cold, because that night was like 3 or 4 degrees Celsius, so just shivering and cold. So I grabbed him and cleaned him up and washed him and got a flea comb and got all the fleas off of him and then learned how to bottle feed them. YouTube is very helpful for stuff like this. It's pretty incredible. But yeah, so it's just this little kitten and I are just rolling around Istanbul these days, and he's keeping me company, much needed company, because I don't know anyone in Istanbul. I'm just kind of hanging out here and talking to all of you and doing the best I can. Anyways, I do hope everyone out there is, happy and healthy, and staying connected with loved ones during these challenging times. And hope everyone is staying mentally strong, because I do fear that this kind of isolation and the financial ruin and the unemployment and all these things are going to have some significantly lasting effects on all of us once this virus pandemic is over, or once a vaccine is found, or something. Whenever we can say that this is done, might be 10 years from now, might be 6 months from now, no idea. But whenever we say this is done, I do fear about the lasting effects that this has on everyone's psyche. Actually, this reminds me, I had a very nice COVID call on my Instagram Live the other day with my cousin, and my cousin is a psychiatrist, Dr. Jeremy Butler. And, he was just saying that this is like so hard to deal with, for everyone to go through this pandemic globally. He was just kind of saying, don't try to do too much if it stresses you out. There's so much crap on social media about people being so busy and people getting so much done, and people like writing scripts and like using this time to get fit and get healthy and learn another language and all this kind of chaos. I like to describe it as chaos. And he was just saying, if you want to learn a language, learn a language. If you want to sit on the couch and watch Netflix, sit on the couch and watch Netflix. Like, just saying, like, it's so hard right now just to get up and do things every day, that you shouldn't put any extra added stress on your life. And, I think that's a solid piece of advice from a psychiatrist. Just wake up every day and try to do something that makes you happy, and try not to think too far beyond just one day at a time. And hopefully we'll all get through this together. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, we have Benjamin Chan on with us today. I actually interviewed Benjamin when I was filming in Hong Kong a few weeks ago, actually a few months ago now. So we do not actually talk about the COVID-19 virus or the pandemic. This was all beforehand, which is nice because I'm getting tired of hearing about it. I'm sure you guys are getting tired of hearing about it. So this is my interview with Benjamin Chan, where we do not talk at all about the pandemic because this happened last year. So enjoy, and I'll come back to you in a little while. Cheers. So who are you, man?
I'm Benjamin Chan.
Okay.
I'm from Hong Kong, and I'm a climber.
Climber. So you're obviously an incredibly interesting person.
Thank you.
That's why you're here. We should let everyone know that we have met before on several occasions. First time was March 2019 when we did a climate conference. We talked about the environment.
Yeah, that was at City U. We were talking about how the places that we've been to around the world, and we've seen the first-hand experiences of climate change and the melting glaciers.
Right. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, that was.
And then you were also part of my Expedition Asia television show.
Indeed, although only brief, it was exciting.
That's good. That's good. And then we had a big night out last night.
We did.
So we're trying to pull it together. So Benjamin Chan, mountain climber. Yeah, so take me through it. Where were you born?
So I'm originally born in Hong Kong, trained in Hong Kong, and grew my passion for climbing in Hong Kong.
Okay, but let's start like right at the beginning. So brothers and sisters?
I have two older brothers and one older sister.
So you're the youngest.
I am the youngest, yeah, and there's quite a big age gap between me and my other siblings. So my sister's actually 13 years older than me,
Okay.
and my brother is like 7 and 8 years older than me.
So what was that like growing up in Hong Kong, a city where you have a serious lack of personal space with three older siblings?
It was it was definitely hard to find that moment of peace because there's always constantly things happening in the house. I mean, even during dinners, we would barely have enough to eat, and so we would have to count like how many chickens we would have each. So we'd be like, okay, three chicken wings each, and if someone would take one more than the designated chicken wing, we'd beat them up. But it was this very camaraderie kind of atmosphere because we were kind of like forced to get along with each other because like we couldn't go to our own room because we had to share rooms at this time. So we kind of learned how to like get along with each other.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like the North American audience probably doesn't understand what it's like to live and grow up in Hong Kong because, the flats are so small. No one has like a house. Everyone lives in a high-rise apartment. So it's a totally different existence than, the North American or European life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because like if you have an argument with your sibling, you just run to your room, you close the door. But in Hong Kong, you can't because that's the same room that your sibling is sharing. So it's a different situation.
Okay. So you went to grade school in Hong Kong. You went to middle school in Hong Kong. So, when did you play any sports when you were young?
I did. My parents were very typical Asian parents, and they wanted to get me involved in a wide range of activities.
Yeah. Did you learn how to play
And
like the piano or the violin?
definitely,
Definitely. That's a pretty
a
typical.
criteria of being Asian is that you learn one of these three instruments. It's either violin, cello, or piano. It's one of those three.
Right?
And I happened to learn piano, flute, and violin. And I
Right.
ended up taking like piano and flute till past grade 8, and I did like grade 3 violin.
Wow.
And my weekly schedule was absolutely packed because I was at that time doing I think like 3 or 4 sports at the same time. I was ended up taking like swimming, so I was training like 4 times a week doing competitive swimming, and then I was doing tennis and football. And so they just kind of threw me into the ring and was like, okay, like try everything and like see if you like something.
Was your mom a Asian tiger mom?
She wasn't. I would say my dad was more of the Asian parent than my mom. My mom was just kind of like, okay, do it, do it, do it, and like if you do it, then I'll be like satisfied.
Okay.
Yeah.
But your dad wanted you to be prolific.
My dad he was more disciplinary.
Okay.
Like he wanted to make sure that I grew up with like the right values. And
Okay.
every time that I would do something wrong, he would ask me to pull down my pants and he would hit me with a bamboo stick.
Bamboo stick.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah, and it reached a point where me and my brothers, we would actually find where the bamboo sticks were and we'd hide them. And so he was like, okay, well, don't use bamboo sticks, and I'm going to use a hanger.
Oh,
So I kind of grew up in a family where it was quite traditionally minded. I mean, if you did that nowadays, I think it would be frowned upon.
sure.
But I'm kind of grateful for that kind of upbringing because that taught me so much about like discipline
Yeah.
and you can't get away with doing something wrong.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I think when I was a kid, like, those big like wooden soup spoons? I think I used to get whacked with that every now and then. Okay, so you're growing up in Hong Kong. You're in a small apartment with a lot of people, and you're into everything. You're violin, piano, flute, playing soccer, European football, tennis. So where does your love for the outdoors come from?
I think originally it comes from my dad.
Okay.
He was heavily involved in just like outdoors. He did like a lot of ultra marathons when he was younger.
Oh, wow.
Actually, even when he was older, when he was like 50 something, he got involved in the 100K race.
Oh,
And
the
so
HK 100?
the Oxfam Trail Walker.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
100K. And so that race involves 4 people. So he teamed up with some of his professor friends from City U.
Nice.
And so they ran 100K.
What does your dad do,
And
by the way?
he's a professor actually
Okay.
in City University. So he teaches electronic engineering.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Smart
Um,
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would like people to think.
You'd like people think. And what about your mom? What did she do?
She helps out in primary school.
Okay.
Teacher. Yeah.
So yeah, you can see where your father was a disciplinarian. For sure. So so your dad is ultra marathon running, doing the Oxfam, and so when does he first take you out?
I think probably as a kid, probably like 4 or 5 years old,
Mhm.
like, we would go out on those family hikes, but it wasn't really anything serious. I would
Yeah.
say probably my first serious experience was when we joined Nico. And that
What's
was,
Nico for people who don't live in Hong Kong?
um, Nico is like a organization that's supposed to it's like team building exercises, and it kind of pushes you to be like outdoors.
Okay.
And so over that period, it was like 3 days in Sunset Peak, which is on far away part of Hong Kong.
Sure, Lantau Island. We just filmed there actually.
Yeah,
Yeah. Fantastic. So
and
you went out
it's
for 3 days with your dad?
yeah, with my dad and with a bunch of other people that I'd never met before, and we had to basically navigate around this part of Hong Kong that we'd never been with just a map and a compass. And like back then, I didn't have any skills with map reading or any compass.
Well, you were what, like 7, 8?
I was like 9 at the time, 8 or 9. Yeah,
That's a tall order for a 9-year-old.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're on Lantau Island outside of on one of the outer islands of Hong Kong with your dad and a whole bunch of people you don't know. And what was the task? What did you have to do?
There was a bunch of tasks that we had to do. The first one was actually they blindfolded all of us, and we had the task of guiding our teammates from one side to the other side. And there was a bunch of obstacles in between, like trees and rocks. And so, without guiding them using our hands, we had to direct them with just our voice.
Okay.
And that was I later realized that was probably the easiest part of the entire trip because we ended up having to like hike like 15 kilometers with like my own pack, which at the time was like 10 kilograms,
Yeah.
and that was heavy for me.
Sure.
And
At that age.
we got underfed. We had like rice with soy sauce at the end of the day,
Okay.
and I was surprisingly very satisfied with that. At the end of the day, I was just looking for anything. They could have fed me like spiders, and I'd be satisfied.
Okay. So your first outdoor experience was taking basically just shaking off that city boy
Yeah,
rust.
toughening me up and kind of just throwing me in the dirt and be like, "Hey, what can you do about it?"
Oh wow.
Yeah.
You know what? I went to my first camp when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I cried every day, and I was homesick, and my cousins were there with me, and I like clinged to them every minute and made their whole trip very awkward. I was a total pain in the ass, and I was a nightmare. And I wouldn't eat anything, and I didn't like anyone, and I was the worst. And now yeah, you shake that off and you move on, right?
Yeah. Well, do you love it still?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I mean, I like to go everywhere. So okay, so after that, and that was with your father. You did that. So it was like a father son like weekend.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Okay. And how'd you get along with your dad on that trip? Was that like a good bonding trip or?
I think for me, it kind of showed me the kind of person he was. Like, I
Yeah,
always think that, like, if you're in the mountains, it can make or break a relationship.
that's very
And,
true. Yeah.
I got to know him, and I realized, like sometimes in the situation, he gets a little bit frustrated. And he doesn't know how to, like, deal with the emotions. But,
Right.
like, if you talk about it with him reasonably, then I realize, like, he's, like, a really nice guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think when you're out in the mountains and things start to go wrong, you can't hide who you really are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in like the most severe situations, like it just forces you to be in the present and to really just like because nobody else is there, It's just you and the people that are around you, and you're not gonna try and pretend to be someone that you're not.
Okay. So you did this 3-day trip on Lantau Island with your dad. While you were doing it, did you enjoy it?
I didn't really enjoy it actually when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of like, oh man, this sucks. I was like, oh, my legs hurt. It's like my shoulders hurt. Like I have like a rash on my shoulders, like I can't feel my legs. It's like I'm hungry and it's cold. It was during the winter. And I remember, I had like snot coming down from like sleeping and just like shivering because we ended up sleeping actually on those metal huts on the top of Sunset Peak.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, they had like special access to keys inside. So we ended up sleeping like on concrete floor that was just freezing cold.
Sure.
And I just remember I'm never gonna do this again. And I remember I came out like walking down to the bus at the end of the trip, and I was just like, whoa! Like I feel so badass. Like I feel like I've like accomplished something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? How bad something can feel in the moment, and then when look back on it, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
So what was your second? How did that? So what? Like you do that 3-day trip and you feel like such a badass, and then what? You go back to piano lessons?
Essentially.
Essentially.
Actually, yeah. I think sometimes you have that like life changing experience. You come back home and you kind of just go back to that normal life.
Right.
Sometimes it takes a series of events to really cause you to think about like what you're doing.
Okay. So what was the second event? What happened after
Um,
that that got you outside and got you enjoying the outdoors?
the second event was probably my friend invited me over to the Scouts.
Okay.
That was,
So you were a scout.
I was, yeah.
So you know how to tie all the knots and set a fire and the whole thing?
That's what people think.
What
Every
is it?
time I go out with my friends, they're like, "Okay, you're a scout. You should be able to make a fire." And they give me like one match, and it's like 50-kilometer-hour winds, and I light that match, and it just doesn't go off. And they're like, "Yo, where's your scouting skills gone?"
Right.
Um, but yeah, I had this perception of scouts as being, you help people across the streets, and you make cookies and you do that kind of stuff.
Sure, there's a social welfare element to it.
Yeah, there is,
Raise
and
money for charities.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I was a kid that just wanted to do adventure and exploration. I didn't really have much care for, doing that kind of stuff. And
Okay.
so I told my friend, I was like, well, I'm not really interested. And he was like, no, come along. Like, this guy is like, he's pretty badass. Like, you're gonna like him, right? And he told me that the scout leader, he was in the U.S. Marine Corps before. So he was
Okay.
like pretty hardcore, disciplined, and we do exciting stuff. So on the first trip, we went stream hiking,
Okay.
and the
Also known as what? Canyoning, right?
canyoning,
Yeah.
yeah, or water falling.
Yeah. Climbing up waterfalls
Yeah,
and
climbing up
walking through rivers
waterfalls.
and stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
awesome.
Which was
How old were you at this stage?
this was 12 years old.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
and so
crazy.
yeah,
Because people don't even know you can do that in Hong Kong.
I didn't even know we could do this in Hong Kong, which was
Right.
for me like profound because like when it comes summer, it's almost impossible to do anything because it's just so hot.
Mhm.
Like outdoors is not an option,
Sure.
and so to have this exposure to like this completely like different sport or whatnot, I was just like, oh, dude, like this is so cool. Like you could do this all year round because like during the summer, there's a ton of water because it's post monsoon season, and during winter, well, you can like trail run.
Right.
Yeah.
So you went canyoning with this ex-hardcore military U.S. Marine as part of the Scouts when you were 12,
Yeah,
and you loved it.
loved it, loved it.
So that was the second in a series of events. So what was the third one?
Well, I think it was more of like the continuation of the second event where I like bashed open my arm. I had like this massive laceration on my right arm, and I ended up getting like 17 stitches.
Okay.
And I remember it was quite funny. I was walking into the hospital, and the person at the registration counter was like still looking, at our papers, and then she was like in Chinese, like, oh, like what problem do you have? And I was like, oh, just look at this. And she like looked up, and she was like, oh, because there was like literally behind me there was like a small trail of like dripping blood because it had been pouring out of like the wound.
Right.
And so the bandage had soaked up all the blood and just started dripping. He's like, oh, okay, we're going to rush you in, right? Got into the triage, went to see a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a cute doctor. And she was like, well, do you want to do local anesthetic? But I'm going to do surgery tonight. Or you can have general anesthetic with a different doctor.
Oh.
Like the day after. And I was like, oh, dude, cute doctor. Like, I'm going to do local anesthetic. But I was so dumb because I went there and it hurt like hell.
Of course.
And the only thing that I saw was her croc boots.
Oh.
I was just
Laying on the ground.
yeah. Have you ever been to like one of those massage parlors where you kind of lie down and you put your head
Yeah.
on those things? Yeah,
You
so
just
it was
see
just like
people's
that. Yeah, exactly. Because my elbow was positioned in a way where I couldn't face up.
Oh.
So I was just looking at her feet the entire time.
That's too bad. But you got stitched up,
I got stitched up,
and that was your canyoning experience.
exactly, yeah. And the scout leader was like, he didn't think that was going to come again. And 1 month later, I showed up, and I was like, what's next?
All right. And what was next?
Just more and more of crazy 3-star, 4-star, like extreme hikes on Lantau Peak. Like the most extreme. I wouldn't even call it hiking. Yeah.
That's awesome. Again, something people have no idea that you can do in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's quite interesting that so many extreme athletes, like trail runners, ultramarathon runners, climbers, come from Hong Kong. Because it's not a well-known place for adventure. It's not like you were born in Chamonix and you come from like 3 generations of mountain climbers. Like that's a different lineage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like your parents probably wanted you to be a professional piano player or like join the symphony or something like that, but now you're climbing Everest at the age of 19. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So that's good. So the Scouts was a really positive experience.
It was definitely.
Yeah. And then what? What happened next? Were you just terrible at football and terrible at tennis and you didn't have a future there, so you just was like, I just want to do crazy shit?
I don't know. I just like I didn't feel like any of those things really lit me up.
Okay,
Like, I tried all of them and I was just like, for me, it was kind of like a compulsory kind of thing. Like I felt like I needed to do those things because my parents told me, okay, you should do it, right?
sure.
So I felt like to satisfy that need, I was like, okay, like I'll do it. But then like I got to do climbing as well on the side.
Right. But there's only
And
so
so
many hours in the day.
exactly, yeah. So I ended up telling them I was like, okay, look, because they gave certain ultimatums. They're like, yeah, do your grade 8, and then after that you can decide if you want to keep on. So I finished like most of my grade 8s like when I was like 11 or 12, so when I was like still quite young,
Okay.
and then I like focused on climbing because I just like loved it so much.
And had all of these trips that you'd done and all this activities, outdoor activities, that they'd all just been in Hong Kong? Like you'd never left Hong Kong.
Yeah, I never left Hong Kong.
So what was the first trip out of Hong Kong?
The first trip out of Hong Kong was when I was 13, when I went to the actually it wasn't Dolomites. I remember. It was the Maritime Alps. Actually,
Maritime
the
Alps.
Maritime Alps, yeah.
Where's that?
It's somewhere between Switzerland and France and Italy. So we ended up touching a little bit of all three countries, and we hiked over 200 kilometers over a period of like 2 weeks.
2 weeks,
And we
200
carried,
kilometers. You're
uh-huh,
13 years old.
yeah.
Did you go with your dad or was it another group?
My dad was there as well.
Okay.
My brother was there as well,
Oh, so it's like
and
a family
it was
thing.
a scout troop actually.
Okay.
Yeah, went with the scouts, and we had to carry all the gear.
Were your
Um,
brothers into the, was your brother and sister, were your two brothers and sisters also in the scouts? Like was this a family thing or were you all by yourself or
no, it was just me.
what
Yeah.
did your brothers and sisters end up doing? What were
Um,
their interests?
my sister, she was actually representing Hong Kong for netball.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and both of my brothers, they were like involved heavily in hockey.
Ice hockey?
Oh no, just field
Field hockey,
hockey.
field
Yeah,
hockey.
field hockey.
That's right, Hong Kong, not Canada. Um, good, good. Okay, so your whole family was very athletic.
Yeah,
Yeah, your dad
yeah,
was running, your sister was netballing, and your brothers were playing field hockey.
yeah,
That's quite a family.
yeah.
So did you feel any pressure to like play sport, or did you just want to find like were you just the youngest? And you're like, I don't care, I just want to do what I want to do.
I didn't really feel the pressure. I was just kind of like, I should do like what I enjoy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And being outside was it?
Yeah, being outside, like I just felt like I clicked. Like I didn't think about anything else. I was just calm.
Okay. So tell me about that 200-kilometer trek in Europe. Where'd you start? Where'd you finish? Do you remember it?
Oh, I don't even remember
Did you
actually.
sleep in cabins? Were you camping?
Those some nights we slept in cabins,
Yeah,
and those nights were amazing
sure.
because the food is amazing, and just like the entire establishment of the Alps. They
Yeah.
have a very good system set up over there, and it's just amazing. Like they have these huts which you can stay at throughout the trails and everything, which means that you don't have to bring any of your gear, any tent. You can just bring like a day bag, and you go for hundreds and hundreds of kilometers.
Yeah.
But
And
some
they got
days
good
we
food.
amazing food,
Yeah.
amazing cheese,
Hmm.
amazing sausage.
Yes.
It's the dream.
Europe's nice, man.
It
Europe's very nice.
is.
So this was when you were 13.
Yeah.
And then what was so you do your 200-kilometer trek with your dad and your brother. You go across one of the most beautiful parts of the world, southern Europe, and like, France, Italy, Switzerland, that whole border area, Southern Alps, Maritime Mountains. So how did that make you feel?
I kind of put myself in this feeling of awe
Hmm.
because, being in Hong Kong, it's like the mountains are much smaller scale.
Sure.
When you go up there and if you're in the valley and you look up, you get these mountains that are 1,000, 2,000 meters that rise up very sharply. I mean, the highest mountain in Hong Kong's like almost 1,000 meters. And to have that double the size, it's incredibly humbling
Hmm.
to know that, like, it's, you just feel so small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Puts everything in perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
I think it's easy to get caught up, like, with thinking, like, everything is really important. But, like, when you're in the mountains, you just realize, like, life will still go on, you know?
yes. We're all
Yeah.
quite insignificant.
Yeah.
It's true. That's amazing that you came to that realization at like 13.
No, I didn't think about that when I was 13. When I was 13, I was just off goofing around.
Okay. But you were off goofing around doing 200-kilometer treks through Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty ambitious.
Yeah.
So what? You come back from Europe. You're 13 years old, and then like when do you decide to start like climbing, like professionally or semi-professionally or as a main hobby?
I never count myself as being a professional or anything. I just feel like I'm just like doing what I love, and like somewhere along the way, like some people like see my vision and see what I'm doing, and they're like, oh, this is cool, like, we want to support you.
Sure.
But I think the turning point was when I came back from that expedition and I saw like a bunch of climbers that were coming into the hut, and they had like all their climbing gear, their like their harness, their helmets, their climbing shoes, and I was like, whoa, like they look badass.
Okay.
And I just remember that feeling like I wanted to try it, and that feeling of like fascination and intrigue. So when I came back to Hong Kong, I went on the web and I searched climbing walls in Hong Kong, and then I came across like Just Climb, which was one of the first newly opened gyms in Hong Kong, and then I went there climbing.
That's
And
amazing.
then,
So you made it happen all by yourself.
yeah, pretty much. Well, I had a vision, I had a passion, and I just wanted to give it a try.
Because you thought a couple of European climbers looked badass with all their clips and hooks and carabiners and climbing shoes and harnesses, and
Yeah,
you were like, I wanted to try that.
yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, back then, because I didn't have any like social media or anything. Like, was there Instagram? Was there Facebook back then?
I don't know. You're like
I'm
20
not too
years
sure.
old.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
I don't know.
back then I, well, at least back then I didn't have any phone or anything, so there was no kind of like inspiration or people you look up to.
Right.
Just like people you meet. So at that time, I just like saw them and I was like, that is badass. I want to try it.
Okay. So you joined the climbing gym, and then when did you start wanting to like climb outside? Because obviously, you took some big steps quite soon after that, right?
Yeah. I think it was like inspiring to like see photos of
Mm.
like Nat Geo or like Jimmy Chin and
Mm.
all these like other amazing like photographers, and see how like big the world is, you know what I mean? Like I think living in Hong Kong, it's like easy to get caught up in like that bubble.
Mhm.
And so um like seeing other photos of these places like inspired me to travel outside of Hong Kong and to see if I can like apply like my climbing skills outside of Hong Kong.
Okay. Like, and actually do some serious climbing.
Yeah, do
Yeah.
some serious climbing. Yeah.
And so where did you want to go first? What was your target or what was your objective?
I wanted to go to Chamonix actually. So Chamonix was one of my bases for climbing
In the Alps in France?
in the Alps in France. Yeah, just because it's got so many accessible routes through the Aiguille du Midi,
Mhm.
and so I at that time there wasn't any mentorship programs in Hong Kong. As you can imagine, there's not any snow or any ice in Hong Kong. So I was like thinking, I was like, okay, if I want to go to like big mountains, if I want to go to Pakistan, Nepal, like, how am I going to train? Who's going to teach me and stuff? And then I came across this guy called Stanley Ng, and he's an alpinist. He works professionally as a climber based out of Chamonix.
Mm-hmm.
And I shot him a message, and I was like, hey, like I want to train, like I want to get some experience, like can you do this for me? And he was like, yeah, sure. He was like, I've been waiting for someone in Hong Kong that like does climbing. And so like he was like a little bit older than me, and he was like, yeah, because like I don't have like a partner that's actually like I can always count on.
Sure.
And so he took me under his wing and we trained there.
That's amazing. So you made this happen like all by yourself. Like you think about your steps, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
you did the first trip to Europe maybe with your family, but then you came back, you found a climbing gym by yourself, and then
Yeah.
you reached out to Stanley, and then he took you under his wing and started teaching you how to climb.
Yeah, but I don't know, a little bit of luck.
Sure, everything everything's luck and hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so when did you first decide to climb Everest? Because, for anyone listening, they should also know that you're the youngest person from Hong Kong to have climbed Mount Everest at the age of 19. So from your first trip to Europe with your family at 13 to 19, somehow you decided to become a serious climber, and you also climbed Mount Everest. So when did that dream happen?
It it was so much of a crazy dream that I'd never even thought it realistically. Like it was just kind of like in the back of my head. Like it was kind of like a joke.
Hmm.
I wouldn't even consider it a dream.
Sure.
That's like how crazy I thought it was. Like, like as a kid, probably like when I was like going to like the Dolomites, and I was just like seeing like these photos, and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And then I searched up, I was like, oh yeah, like what's the tallest mountain in the world? And it's like Everest. And I was like, oh dude, like I'd like totally like love to do that one day. And I was like, yeah, but that's probably never gonna happen.
But you were conscious of it.
Yeah, I was aware of it, and I remember I graduated from high school, and I heard about this Japanese girl by the name of Marin Minimiya, and so she had just established the world record for being the youngest person to the Explorers Grand Slam, which is the 7 summits and skiing the North and South Pole.
Okay.
And I was like,
How old was she?
she was at the time 20.
She did all 7 summits on 7 continents and skied the North and South Pole by the age of 20.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Powerful.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. It was that kind of like introspective kind of look at your life, like, whoa, what am I doing with my life? You know?
Sure.
So that kind of series of events kind of like sparked me to think about like, okay, like what am I doing with my life? You know?
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe I should challenge like what my perspective of like what is really possible. And so like I reached out to her and asked her, I was like, okay, what are the challenges that you face? Like,
Oh, you
like
you
how
reached
can
out to her
I reached out to her, yeah.
and she responded.
Yeah. She
That's
responded.
amazing.
Yeah.
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 And what'd you ask
Yeah,
her?
you'd be honestly surprised at like how responsive some people are, because
Yeah.
some people genuinely just want to help, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a lot of the times I think we scare ourselves too much thinking that, oh, like how are they going to respond, like what if they don't respond, like if they don't respond it's fine, but if
It's
they do respond, like you get valuable advice on how to do something.
yeah. We are our worst enemies
Yeah,
almost every time. We think ourselves out of doing amazing things every day.
yeah. I think if people believe in themselves more, they can achieve so much more.
I agree.
I believe it.
Yeah. Okay, so you reached out to this Japanese wonder kid, and what nuggets of life lessons and what gold did she give you?
I think the main thing that I took away from her was perseverance,
Yeah.
and that like you don't have to be like this amazing person or this like crazy person. You just have to keep doing at it day after day after day after day, and maybe the results won't come out, but um, all you need is that one opportunity. Like that's what I realized. She was like, oh yeah, like it doesn't matter. Like you can send 200, but like you think like the first 100 like might not work out, but you just need that one. If you get that one, like that changes everything.
What do you mean, like with regards to sponsorship?
Yeah,
Okay. So she taught you how to do some sponsorship and things like that.
yeah,
Okay. So reaching out to like 100 companies or 100 institutions to help you raise money to go to Everest or something like that?
yeah.
Okay.
She was like, honestly, like the first stages of doing it is going to be the hardest, because like you're going to get companies that are going to say no, and they're not going to give you a reason, and you're going to feel like you're going to take it personally, because you're like, you know, why don't they support my project? Like I have a good project, I have a good motive behind it, like why don't they get behind it,
I'm a
right?
cool person.
And
Come
then
on, man.
yeah, right, like
Yeah.
I'm going to help your company out, and then after a while you realize like you don't take it personally, and you just like after the first 10 proposals that you send out, you're like, okay, whatever, and you just click send, and you're like, okay, and then now you just wait for responses, you know?
It's true.
So it's kind of building up like that iron chest wall and saying like, hey, it's fine if I get a no.
I work on the 5% rule. So I know that for every 20 proposals I send out, I'll get 19 no's and 1 yes.
That's a pretty good percentage.
And yeah, at 5%, it's not bad. But all I try to do now is just rack up 19 no's as quickly as possible. So like when someone says no, I'm like, great, 18 more. Someone says no again, great, 17 more. Like I'm just working, and just like broadcasters say no, great, 16 more. Like I'm just working on that kind of mentality. Like just give me the no's, because the more no's I can get fastest, then I'll get a yes. It's true. You can't take it personally. Like
I'm
people,
totally with you on that.
yeah, people take it so personally, and then they get so discouraged and they just get shattered.
Yeah.
And then that stops them from doing amazing things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So it's incredible you learned that at such a young age.
Well, I've just been really lucky to have the right mentors around me teaching me the lessons that I don't have to make the mistakes that they made.
Sure. Okay. So look, you talked to this Japanese amazing woman who did the 7 summits and the poles. She taught you a little bit about sponsorship, and then what? Like, how long did it take you to go out and raise money to go to Everest? Like, what did you do next?
Like it took me probably a good half a year, because I ended up taking a gap year when I graduated from high school.
Okay, let's go back a second. So look, your brothers are athletes, your sister's an athlete,
Yeah.
your father's an athlete, and then you sit down with your parents and you're like, I want to climb Everest. How'd that conversation go?
The first time I talked to them about it, they were kind of just they thought that I was joking. They didn't think it was real, because for me personally, I also thought it was a joke. Like I just never thought it was possible, you know. So when I told it to them, they were like, "Yeah, sure, okay, sure, you do it." And then when I like told it to them again, and I was being really serious about it, they were like, "Okay, I think like Ben's actually like considering going up to Everest." And
That's fantastic.
they were concerned about my safety. They were like, Ben, are you sure about this? Like, Everest is a serious mountain. You know, like you can die on this mountain." And you know, they'd seen a lot of the movies regarding Everest and uh, the dramatized versions of it. And I told them, I was like, it's, you know, it's not what it really is like. And I think when I'll get there, I think it'll be a completely different experience from the movies. And I told them, I was like, this is my dream. Like, I would like to see this happen.
Okay.
And they were like, okay, well, like, you know, when someone has a dream, like, it's so hard to stop them. And like, if you do try to stop them, like, a part of them kind of like dies.
I think that's a pretty good realistic yeah
Like you
representation of
feel
that.
like you're missing something.
Yeah,
And, you know, they were like, okay, like let's support him in what he's doing. So they were
that's
like,
amazing.
yeah,
Okay, so you got supportive parents. You learned the ins and outs of raising money. So how long did it take you to raise the money you needed to go to Everest?
I think more than 6 months.
More than six
It took a long
months.
time. Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of door to door actually. Yeah, so I sent proposals as well, and like if they didn't work, then I would like go to door.
Now,
And
are there
so
any climbers in Hong Kong that have climbed Everest that you reached out to as mentors or as people who guided you through the process?
I did John Zhang.
Okay.
He's actually climbed Everest I think now like 4 times.
Okay.
Yeah, climbed Everest the most times from Hong Kong. And so, you know, I talked to him and see if he had any connections with certain companies.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was good. So you had some local help.
Yeah.
And is he a professional climber or does he have a day job or what?
He's a guide actually. He set up his own company, Alpine Adventure Limited.
Okay.
So he helps guide clients to like Japan or Kilimanjaro, 7 summits actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Like Elbrus.
Have you ever been out with him since?
Yeah. Um, I haven't actually been with him like climbing or anything. Yeah.
Okay.
But I've seen him on Everest. He was on Everest the same year that I was there.
Okay. That's great. So you have some local mentors and some local people that you can reach out to.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, so what was it like the day you got enough sponsorship to go to Everest? What was that moment like when you raised enough money?
It felt surreal.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's like when you have like that frame shift of like when something's possible to like it finally being realistic. You're kind of like, is this real?
Yeah.
I don't know. So you kind of have to like slap yourself in the face and like you're like, you know, is this real? But
So what's the logistics of that? So you raise enough money to go to Everest, and then what? And then you book a tour? Like which how do you choose which tour company to go with, and how does it all work out? Did you get a recommendation from a friend on who you should go with?
from the Japanese girl, yeah, she went with International Mountain Guides, so I ended up going with them as well.
Okay,
And they were a reputable American company, and I was like, okay, yeah, I
great.
should go with them.
And so then you booked in, and then so so did you do the Tibet side or the Nepal side?
Did the Nepal side.
Okay, so when did you leave Hong Kong
Ooh,
for Kathmandu?
rough date, probably around the end of March, so March 30th, around that date.
Okay, and what was that like? Did your parents take you to the airport? Like, did your brothers wish you to be safe? Like, that's an emotional moment, right?
Well, my oldest brother and sister, they were actually in the UK at the time.
Okay.
They're working there. But yeah, my middle brother and my family, they came to the airport for me, and also John Zhang and a couple of other friends came
Oh, that's
as
nice.
well. Yeah,
To wish you well.
yeah, just wish my safety.
Okay. And what was that like, flying from Hong Kong to Kathmandu with Everest in your eyes?
Oh, I felt like it's this kind of like jitters or kind of like nerves. It's like before you go up onto a stage, you know, before you're about to give a talk, and you feel that butterflies, and it felt thrilling.
That's amazing. So you get to Kathmandu. You'd never been to Nepal before, and then what happens? Walk me through the whole Everest experience.
Whole Everest experience. You get to Nepal. You get to meet your team members.
Okay.
You get to know them, and you have a meal, and you see, okay, like this is the people that I'm gonna be with for quite a while, and then you get on your flight the next day to Lukla,
Hmm.
which is again this small little airplane, and it's shaking in the air, and you land in Lukla, which is the most dangerous airport in the world, just
Yeah.
because it's a short airway. It's like 100 meters maybe,
And it's on a hill
and yeah,
in
it's
the
on an upward hill
in the Himalayas.
in the Himalayas, and if you go too low, you're going to crash into mountains. You go too high, you're going to crash into the town. So just getting to Lukla already is an adventure within itself. And then you do a little trek up to Everest Base Camp. And for acclimatization, we go up to Lobuche Peak, which is a 6,000-meter mountain. It's not super technical. And then come down and we do some acclimatization rotations in Everest. But yeah, Nepal's infrastructure is definitely different to my past trip in Pakistan because in Nepal they have tea houses.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Nepal's quite a relaxed, quite a tamed version, I would say, of nature
Yeah.
in comparison to Pakistan.
I would agree. Nepal has great infrastructure. Yeah. You can, everywhere there's tea houses and you can get a hot meal and warm tea every night. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
We'll get to Pakistan in a second though. So you're at Everest Base Camp, you're doing rotations, you're going back and forth across the Khumbu Icefall, like, and you're 19 years old. Like, what are you thinking? Are you thinking like, Jesus, like I bit off way more than I can chew? Or are you like, this is where I belong? I'm curious because I'm always caught in these two mind frames. Like some days I'm like, this is what I was born to do. And I'm not a professional climber or anything like that, but I like being out in the wild and doing crazy things. And then other days it's like, what the hell am I doing out here in like the middle of this desert or on the side of this mountain? Like this is a bit too much. Like because people don't understand, like your confidence goes up and down every day. Some days you feel like Superman, some days you feel like a fool. And I'm just wondering how you felt at 19 being able to manage those emotions.
To be quite honest, I think there's a lot of self-doubt before the trip, because I think a lot of doing climbing and these trips to extreme places is that kind of like psychological preparation. Because like if you're not going on these trips feeling 100% confident, then you're not going to be able to do it. Because no matter what you do, you always have to have that confidence in your own ability and knowing that you are actually capable of doing it. But that being said, like because you're there for more than 1.5 months, and there are moments of doubt when you're just kind of sitting there during your downtime, and you just wonder, you're like, what am I doing here? Like, why am I climbing? Like, because you always try to ask yourself, what is the purpose of what you're doing? Because if you're not doing it for the right reasons, then you're just wasting your own time, right? And so part of the process is finding what are your reasons for climbing, and does that make you feel like you're fulfilled, or does that make you feel like you're alive?
It's
You
not
know?
just the Instagram photo at the summit.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
So what
It's
was it? So what was it for you? What were your reasons?
For me, it was just like one, it was like a childhood dream, and two, it was just kind of showing me like that that the potential is like so much bigger for what there is to achieve, and that just changed my entire perspective of like what was possible.
Hmm.
Because before I just never thought that was like I'd never even considered it was possible. So having come back from Everest, I was just like anything is possible now. Yeah,
That's empowering,
which is very empowering.
right?
Yeah.
Like think about, so, a lot of people that you were climbing with were probably in their 30s and 40s because Everest is quite an expensive journey. There's probably a lot of like business professionals that can make that kind of money to afford that kind of trip. And you're surrounded by all these essentially adults, and you are a young adult, 19 years old, and you're having to deal with these emotions, and that's not easy. Like you're not a fully formed person at 19. You don't have full control over your emotional swings or your full mentality, but you showed like serious perseverance and strength and focus. Like that's intense.
It is. It is quite intense. Like to keep that kind of like focus over a long period of time. It's easy to kind of lose focus and think about home and think about other things back home, because you kind of grow homesick and you wish that you had the things of comfort that you had back at home. You wish you had a warm shower. You wish that you had a bed that doesn't roll over in the middle of the night, or you wish you had a rock that doesn't like dig into the back of your neck, or you wish you had Chinese food.
Yeah.
And one of the things is like being able to deal with the highs and lows, and to know that like at the end of the day, like like nothing's changing back at home. That's what I realized. Because
Mhm.
like I think a lot of the feelings is that you feel like you're missing out as something at home, But then what my friends always said is that no matter what, like just go climb, because when you come back, like nothing's probably really changed back at home.
Isn't that scary?
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing
Um,
changes.
yeah.
It's true. Okay, so you're acclimatizing on Everest. You're dealing with the emotional highs and lows, and so what's your ascent like? So how, like you had a weather window of what, a week or two, and then what, you just go up from base camp and you crush it, like just bang 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 once you're all acclimatized? How does it work? I've never climbed Everest. Lead me through it, man.
Actually, when I was on Everest, I didn't even think I was gonna make it to the first camp at all, because when I was actually trekking to base camp, I was like, oh, this is so easy, 5,000 meters, and I was like running, and then I actually twisted my ankle,
Oh, jeez.
and that was the first, because I think it was about a month before this trip, I was climbing, right, and I landed on the mat really awkwardly,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd completely twisted my ankle,
Ooh.
and so it's swollen up to the size of like a little tangerine. And so that kind of re-triggered that swelling and inflammation.
Okay.
And so I messaged my dad. And I was like, okay, I think this trip is over.
Because you were running around at base camp.
Yeah,
Huh.
and it was a ridiculous thing, because I was like, dude, if my trip is over because of this small little twisted ankle, it's like I would have been like devastated.
Okay.
Because I mean, it's just such a dumb mistake.
Sure.
You
But you
know.
healed?
I healed, luckily. Yeah, there was one of my friends was a doctor from John Hopkins, and she specialized in pediatrics, actually. Very
Okay.
luckily.
Okay.
But this was like Ti Da, which is a Chinese form of physiotherapy. And so I just told her, okay, I was like, okay, just massage my muscles to get rid of the scar tissue, and it recovered in 2 days.
Wow.
And so luckily I was able to do my rotations. But yeah, back onto the summit attempts. We actually had really good weather that year in 2018. So we had 2 weeks of good weather, and me and the team, we decided, we were like, okay, we're gonna be patient, and we're gonna make sure that we're gonna do it on one of the last days of the good weather window, and just to let all the other teams go out first. And so we went from base camp to camp 2 through the Khumbu Icefall and up through the western Khum, and then there we rested one day at camp 2, and then
Camp 2 is at what, 7,000?
camp 2 is at 6,400.
Okay.
Then we go up through the Lhotse face, which is this area that's ranging from 40 degrees to 70 degrees, and so it's steep. Just some areas, definitely very steep.
Sure.
Yeah.
And what are you doing? Are you cross-stepping at that stage? Like, are you just...
No, it's so steep you have to front point some of the areas.
Oh, really? You're on your
Yeah.
toes?
Yeah, you're on your toes.
Really?
Yeah.
For like 1,000 meters, you're just on your toes?
Yeah.
That's intense.
It is intense. Like you really feel like your calf burning.
Yeah.
And it's really painful. And like you just want the pain to end.
Right.
Yeah. It's a very masochistic sport. So
Absolutely.
yeah. It's all
Okay.
about embracing that pain.
Embracing the pain. If you're mentally strong enough, then you also have to embrace the physical pain. So you get to camp 3, and everything was okay at camp 3?
Yeah, everything at camp 3 was okay. And yeah, it was fine at camp 3. Yeah.
And then what?
And then we slept there for a couple of hours, woke up at like 6 a.m. Then we went up to camp 4. That took quite a while, actually. I think that took around 6 hours, because there was a lot of people coming down.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of like going on the ropes and all that. There's like one rope and stuff, and
So
it's
you
quite
gotta
crazy.
click in and click out every time?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
And it's trouble, and that's where like most of the accidents happen, because you kind of lose focus and you misclip, and you don't clip anything, you lose your balance and you fall off.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So you're up at camp 3, camp 4. People are coming down. You're going up. Were you on oxygen at this stage?
I was actually, yeah. I was on oxygen.
So the oxygen mask is on your face the whole day,
yeah,
and
the
you're
whole day.
breathing in. And is that helpful or harmful? Like, do you find? I mean, obviously the oxygen tank is heavy, so you're carrying more weight. But do you feel like your body functions better? I mean, because your muscles and your blood cells are getting more oxygen at a higher altitude. Like, do you feel like, do you feel fully functional at that altitude with oxygen, or is it still? Do you still really feel the altitude?
you definitely still feel the altitude, like
Okay.
no matter what, like with oxygen, without oxygen. I don't even know if my oxygen mask was even working, honestly.
Okay.
Like,
Because I did
because
Aconcagua.
I was taking off the oxygen mask and I was like, oh, this feels the same. Put it back on. I was like, okay, well, there's not much difference.
Because I did Aconcagua, and
Uh-huh.
it's nothing like Everest, but it's still seven. It's almost 7,000 meters.
Uh-huh.
And I remember, the last 100 meters to the summit, I was taking baby steps, and it was like all I could muster. Like I was just dragging, and like I was just like, my muscles are not getting any oxygen right now. Like I just couldn't lift my feet, and that was only 7,000 meters, not even 8.8 or 8.9, like where you've been. I'm just curious, like how the oxygen plays. What role that plays with your muscles and your performance.
It's a weird sensation because you like you want to breathe faster, but if you breathe faster, you're gonna pass out, 'cause you go into like respiratory like alkalosis.
Sure.
But you can't control that reaction. Like you're just so fatigued, but you want to breathe faster, but you can't control your breathing, and you feel like your chest is pumping, and it's literally like you can't control your heart rate, you can't control your breathing, and you just feel helpless like in that situation. Like above 8,000, like your body is just trying to survive, and there you are trying to go higher and higher, right?
Yeah.
And so
That's why they call it the death zone.
yeah, the death sounds pretty ominous.
Yes.
But yeah, part of it is just kind of keeping your head down and just believing in the process and knowing that if you just take one step after another, you'll eventually get there. Like it doesn't matter how slow you are. If you take, yeah, okay. Some people on Everest shouldn't be on Everest. Like some people go really slow.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, like one step after another. But okay, you have to go reasonably fast, or else because like there was another person from Hong Kong that was there this year. Not to talk smack about him, um, but he ended up taking like 16 hours, and he came back down and he had like black tips on all of his fingers. Because the thing
Frostbite.
is, when you're going that slow,
You're
there's
exposed more.
you're exposed more. You're there for a longer time, and that also means that they have to lower the amount of oxygen you use.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that there's less blood flow going there.
So he got frostbite.
He did like superficial frostbite. It was black, but then when he got back to Hong Kong, it got better.
Wow, that's pretty serious though.
Yeah,
Scary. Thinking you're gonna lose a finger or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you're up at Camp 4. You're in the death zone. What was it like? When did you leave Camp 4? What time?
I think we left around it was 11.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you went all through the night?
went out throughout the entire night, and it was just
Dark and
I
cold
remember
and windy.
the feeling of coming out of the tent. Like that was the day. That was the moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a vivid moment because I just remember opening the tent and I was like, okay, like this is what this entire month and a half has come to. Like this moment, like this is the make or break moment. Like this is the time where I have to pull every ounce of strength within me and just go for it. Like don't hold back. Like I've got to give everything that I've got to this mountain.
After a month and a half of being on Everest and struggling and twisting your ankle and having all the doubts and fears and doing your acclimatization rotations, it still comes down to one moment, one tent zipper, 11 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It is, and it's kind of still scary as well because like you're so close, but at the same time you're like, oh, but there can be so much. Like there's so much that can happen between where I am now and all the way to the summit, and like, but then as soon as you get on your boots on and you get out, it's like all of that doubt, all of that self doubt, it just washes away, and you just focus, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do it now.
One step at a time.
Yeah, and because the beauty of it is that it's pitch black, so you don't see anything. You don't see the top. You don't see anything. All you see is your 2 feet.
Isn't that
Which is
terrible?
which is amazing sometimes.
It's
Because-
amazing sometimes.
Because when you don't know where the top is, like
Yeah.
you just keep going, and that's fine, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes when you see the top, you're like, my gosh, that is so far away. I'm never gonna get there. So in the pitch black, it's beautiful because you just see your 2 feet.
I
Keep
do
going.
find it soul destroying though when when we did Aconcagua, we left at like 1 a.m. for the summit, and for the first 5 hours, you're just staring at your headlamp, looking at your feet, staring at your headlamp, looking at your feet, and you're frozen. Like it's minus 30, minus 35 degrees Celsius, and all I was doing was waiting for the sun, because our guide said, if you make it till when the sun comes up, you're going to get to the summit. Because when the sun comes up, your body warms up, the mountain changes, your disposition changes, you become more positive when the sun comes up. He goes, if you make it till the sun comes up, you'll make it to the summit. And all I remember doing is just make it till the sun comes up. Just make it till the sun. And I was just looking at my feet, going like, make it till the sun. And then when the sun hit, it was like, oh my God, it was powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You have to kind of have that mantra. Like I
Yeah.
didn't have exactly that mantra, but I was just like one more step, one more step,
One
one
more
more
step.
step, and suddenly you just look around you and you're like, whoa, wow, like I've reached this point, I've reached the balcony, or I've reached the South Summit Ridge.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with you with the sun coming up. Like you just get this energy and this power from the sun.
Yeah. I
It's
survived the night.
yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It is crazy. So you left at 11 p.m. from Camp 4. You put yourself through your mantra. And what time did you make the summit?
Around 6:30
Yeah.
in the morning.
Tears in your
So
eyes?
actually no tears in my eyes.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be extremely emotional, but I got to the top and I just remember a feeling of relief
Yeah.
rather than happiness,
Okay.
which was completely not what I expected. I had this perception of what it was going to be like when I got to the top. Like I'd be like, yeah, like hands raised and kind of like screaming in the air, but more like when I was there, I was just kind of like struggling for air and be like, oh, I finally made it. Like this is crazy.
Yeah.
And so when I got there, I just kind of like touched the top and I was just like just sitting down. I was like just catching my air actually first.
Yeah.
And I was there for a couple of minutes before I was kind of like, okay, like I caught my air and I was just like looking around. I was looking over to Nepal side first, and you could actually see the pyramidal shape of Everest, and it was just casted over Nuptse on the other side, and it was just the shadow of Everest.
Wow.
Massive triangle.
That's amazing. That's something you wouldn't see if you got up later in the day, right? That's an early morning moment.
No, you only see it in the morning.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
And you could see Tibet as well on the other side. You could see a couple of climbers coming up on the North Ridge from Tibet, and it was amazing. You could see for hundreds of kilometers, and the sky was this phenomenal light blue on the horizon, and it would go to this dark blue until this pitch black, because we were essentially in the lower stratosphere. These were where this was the cruising altitude of most airplanes, and so to be up there, I felt like I was like the manifestation of a spaceman.
Yeah.
You know,
Could you see the curvature of the Earth?
you could
Yeah.
very slightly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you did this at 19 years old.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
More to do. More to do.
More to do. So look, you're at the top of Everest. Were you afraid of coming back down? Because obviously you only made it 50% by the time you summit. Was that a concern for you or a worry?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the biggest thing was that like when I was like celebrating and I was like, okay, I made it to the top. Then I was like, oh crap, like I'm only like 50% on the way there. And because like at the back of my head, like I knew the statistics that most people died on the way down because of complacency or I don't know, small mistakes. And I was like, okay, like I gotta stay focused, make sure that I get down to Camp 2 at least.
Yeah.
And so I was abseiling down and actually I saw this body when I was coming down from the balcony to Camp 4, and most of the bodies actually on Everest, they've been moved on to the side of the trail so people don't actually see them. But this one, was like 4 or 5 meters across, and he was kind of like frozen and crusted. And I hadn't seen it on the way up because it was pitch black.
Sure.
And it's kind of like surreal.
Yeah.
Because like it kind of hit me, like not when I was like actually climbing, but like when I got down, I was kind of like, whoa, like those people that passed away whilst climbing Everest, like they had the same ambition, same dream that I had, and they also had thought of going back to their family, but somewhere along that way, like things didn't work out. And I was just like, this is crazy. I was like, okay, I want to go down, please. Like I want to go back home alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the darkness of the night from Camp 4 to the summit, how important was having that family support? Like you mentioned, you sitting down with your parents and telling them you had this dream and they kind of believed in you. Like how important was that for you to have that?
I think that was like everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think no matter what I do, like a strong part of me is obviously like my faith in believing in God and everything. But also having family support, having friends as well was very important, because it's you can never do anything alone, and so in the back of the head, when you have so many people that are kind of like encouraging you, supporting you, and kind of like betting for you, then it's like it becomes more of a bigger project than just like doing it for yourself. It's like you feel like you're doing it for other people.
Like a team.
Yeah, like a team.
Yeah, that's important, right?
Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice. So what was it like coming back to Hong Kong?
It was crazy actually. I got like insane like reception. Like there was like tons of like news reporters like waiting at the airport and everything.
Wow.
It's like TVB and all of
Were
them.
you expecting that?
Not really. Because I had landed and my parents were like, "Oh yeah, there might be like a couple of people like outside the airport," and I was like, "Oh okay, sure." Like they might have a couple of questions to ask. And when I came out, like there was like 10 like massive cameras all like pointing at me, and I happened to be like on the headline of the news like that night,
Yeah.
and I was just like, "Whoa."
Hong Kong's youngest ever climber
Yeah,
successfully
yeah.
summits Everest.
It was kind of cringe when I saw it on the TV. I was like, "Oh gosh, like
Yeah.
that's me." Because I came back. It was like I landed at like 4 a.m.
Sure, you must have looked terrible.
and I had like eye bags, and at that time I actually had hair that was going down to like my neck.
Oh, I haven't seen those photos.
It's terrible. Yeah, like people noticed me
You
because
had the
of my
raccoon
hair.
eyes from your goggles.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. I had this kind of red curvature around
of course.
my
Burned
face.
cheeks from
Yeah.
the sun exposure and the wind exposure. Yeah, come on, man. We both live in the mountains. It's perfect. And you're
Yeah.
sitting there like, "Hi, everyone. It's good to be home."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they ask you like the weirdest questions. They're like, "What do you want to do when you first come back?" And I was like,
Have some Chinese food.
like char siu fan, yeah, like
Yeah.
fried pork rice."
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, look, how has that experience changed you now? So, I mean, I find this trajectory of your life so interesting because you're now 20 years old. You climbed Everest when you were 19. You first went abroad when you were like 12, 13. You did, your trip in Europe. You raised money on your own to go to Everest. Like, how empowered a human being are you right now? Like, it's astonishing. Like, you must feel like you can just walk on air. No, I mean, I don't want to say you're arrogant or you're disrespectful, but you must have this sense of confidence in yourself that most people don't understand. You did it. Like, you set out to do one of the hardest things to do in the world. Raise money, first of all. Raising money to do anything is really hard. But second, you raised money and you went to Mount Everest and you came back safe and you did what you wanted to do. Like, that's astonishing. Like, not a lot of people do that. Sure, increasingly, maybe more and more, but like, you must feel like the sky's the limit. Like, how has that changed your perspective on what's possible?
I mean, I don't like to think of it as being like an accomplishment where it's kind of like bragging rights or where I can like tell people like, "Hey, look at me, like I've climbed Everest." I try to keep it quite low because it I don't know, I hope that this kind of like story of what I've done can like inspire other people. But apart from that, like I don't see of it as like a big accomplishment. Like it's just it's just climbing Everest. Like I love climbing. Like it doesn't have to be more than that.
No, but go
Like
deeper. Go deeper. Like, from now on, anything that you set out to do, there's going to be a little voice in the back of your mind being like, "I got this." Most people don't have that. And you did this at 19. Like, it's astonishing. Like, most people never get that voice in the back of their head where it's like, "I can do this. I've done harder things. This is going to be okay." And that's what pushes people through to do exceptional things. Like, and most people, maybe they find that at 40 or 50 through professional avenues, or maybe they find it in athletic achievements. But I feel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you found that at 19. Like, that's crazy.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think maybe for me, I did have like a defining moment. I think for like Everest, where it completely like changed my perception of what was possible. I think I came to realize that like it's fine to kind of like lose control of everything, and I found it quite empowering. I think to be vulnerable and stuff. I think in a world in a social media that everyone's trying to portray something that they're not, trying to portray that they're perfect and everything. I realized that it's actually more powerful to be vulnerable and to be true to yourself and to um, to pursue what you want, because we live in a society, I think, where a lot of people try to tell you what to do and try to make you conform to society because they don't know better, because that's what their parents have told them, or because that's what their friends have told them, that there are certain expectations that you should achieve. But at the end of the day, you should do whatever really you want to do.
People are
Um,
afraid though.
yeah, people are afraid. I mean, I can understand that fear, but fear is irrational. Fear cannot be justified. You just have to smash through it, break through it, and say, hey, like, I'm afraid, but I don't care about it because I'm not going to let fear control my life. Um, the, there's this guy that I really like, David Lama, and he's a super humble climber. And one of the things that he said was, if you're afraid of death, then you're afraid of living. And so a lot of the times, it's not that we're afraid of like doing these amazing things. We're afraid of like how do people view us if we fail?
Sure.
And then once you overcome that barrier, you realize that like people don't really care if you fail, right? Like if you fail, they'll be like, oh man, that kind of sucks. And then life just goes on, right? So like once you overcome that barrier of thinking that people care about you failing, then you'll start to not think too much. Because I think the greatest barrier is that we overthink things. Because we try to think of the situations, you're like, oh, but then what if this happens? And then if I try this, like what if someone rejects me? Or like what if someone doesn't like the way I look or the way that I sound? And it's like, so what? You
Yeah.
know?
So what?
Yeah, so what?
You ever heard the phrase, it's not how far you fall, it's how high you bounce? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. Like when everything goes well, you learn nothing. And then you just think that life is a cakewalk.
Yeah.
Like you really have to fail. You really have to lose things
Yeah.
in order to learn.
Yeah.
And then that's how you get stronger.
Yeah. And I think quite an empowering thing is that it doesn't matter like what status you are or where you come from. Like I know people that have come from nothing and that have built something out of that. And the powerful thing that I've come to realize is that when you become accountable to your own actions, then that is empowering. Because like even if you make mistakes, even if you make failures, because you made that choice yourself, then you're fine with it, right? Like if I fail, like if I write a proposal and like someone rejects me, then I'm fine with that because I made the decision to make myself vulnerable and to accept that rejection,
Sure.
right? And so the thing is, you should never be at a point in life where you let somebody else decide the life for you.
Yeah.
So maybe you're at a point in life where you've decided, okay, this is where I want to go and this is where I am now. And perhaps along that way, you're not where you need to be, but you're making steady progresses to be there. Mm-hmm. So let's say like you want to transition from a 9 to 5 job and you want to become a professional climber. Let's say you're still doing that 9 to 5 job, but after you work, you're making small steps in order to make that transition. So let's say, I don't know, you pick up climbing or you start up photography and you start taking photos. So that doesn't mean that you're throwing away that like 9 to 5 job and making that like radical transition to like a crazy like climber's life, but it's saying that like 9 to 5 life isn't controlling my life and I still have the option to do other things. Because I think somewhere along the way, people decide that the life that they have is enough for them.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
It's contentment. People become content with just living that like day-to-day life. And I think it's the realization that you can achieve so much more and like life has so much more to offer than your 9 to 5.
Sure. But and again, I think for people who are listening to this who love their 9 to 5 job, it's not for everyone, and you need to know yourself.
Yeah.
Like some people just want to have a really nice job and live their life and take nice vacations and buy things and have money to buy things that they want to buy and send their kids to school and just kind of be content with that life. But then I think that for people like you and me, I think maybe we're a little bit similar in some ways. We're chasing something totally different. And the earlier you find what that difference is and the earlier you start chasing it and start having positive experiences, then the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And you found that.
Yeah, actually, okay, I actually have nothing against like 9 to 5 and stuff,
Yeah.
but I just know that there are a lot of people out there that don't want that 9 to 5 job.
Sure, and with social media and stuff like this and all these pictures of people doing amazing things all around the world, it only makes people hate their 9 to 5 job even more. Yeah, because look, I mean, I grew up in an age where there wasn't social media.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to see what everyone else was doing all the time.
Yeah.
And, it was just like you and 10 friends. And as long as, you seemed happy and your 10 friends seemed happy, then whatever you were doing was fine.
Yeah.
But now you can see guys in Nepal, you can see people in Uganda, you can watch guys in Argentina, you can see people in Montana, the USA, and then you're like, I want to do that, but I'm stuck here. Like now, all of a sudden, I think people will have more choices and more options, and I think that it's. I hope people are taking more interesting risks and trying to find whatever makes them happy. Because 15 years ago, there's nothing out
Yeah.
there about this, and now it's accessible on your smartphone in seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really crazy.
It's crazy what you can like find around the world. You can meet friends, you can connect with climbers, partners.
Tell me about vulnerability. I'm curious to hear about this because you mentioned taking risk, putting yourself out there, opening yourself up to rejection. I would also maybe add putting yourself in the path of Mother Nature as being vulnerable and how that inspires you or empowers you. How do you feel when you're out there, like totally exposed?
I think part of it is like management of risk. Obviously, inherently, there's a lot of risk that you can control, like Mother Nature, especially with avalanches, ice fall, and the conditions.
She's a beast, huh?
Yeah, you can't control that,
Yeah.
and you just have to accept that for what it is. But I think a lot of it before even approaching the mountain is that like prerequisite of like experience and like exposure to previous conditions,
Sure.
and so it's like this kind of like inbuilt intuition. So before you even reach that, if you're hitting that ice axe and you hit it, like when you hear it and when you feel that ice, you already know what kind of condition that ice. You know how thick it is. You know how safe it is. When you put that ice screw in, you're already calculating, and you're thinking, okay, like if I fall however many meters, like 3 or 5 meters, like is this gonna be able to catch my fall?
Yeah.
Like if I'm putting the cam in and let's say the rock is kind of like shaking and I'm like yanking out, I'm like, yeah, okay, if I fall, I'm gonna fall out 5 meters. So it's kind of like establishing that kind of like experience beforehand and minimizing the risk. That's why like when a lot of people ask me, they're like, oh, like dude, you're like crazy, you're like playing with your life and stuff. And I'm like, no, it's not really. Like when I go there, it's pretty well calculated and I manage the risks as much as I can.
Sure.
And a lot of it is like the training beforehand and knowing where my limit is. Because if you know where your limit is, then you know where you can push it towards, and you know where you can say, okay, like that is too much risk. I'm gonna back off.
Right. I tell my mom that my mom still gets quite upset when I do some trips, and she's like, "Why are you taking all this risk and doing all these dangerous things?" And I'm like, "No, they're not that bad. It's just an exercise in discomfort." So it's like
It's an interesting way of putting it.
I like it because like you obviously you have experience doing these things, and you work with guides who have done the trips before, and then you minimize the risk as much as possible, and you have an intuition about these things because you travel so much. And then after that, it's just uncomfortable. And once you can walk across a desert for 170 kilometers or climb to 8,900 meters above sea level or whatever, like it's just managing the discomfort. And discomfort's beautiful because we've created this kind of bullshit society where we're comfortable all the time. We're in air conditioning. We're in the heat. We have elevators that take us up where there should be stairs because we don't want people to have to walk.
Yeah.
And Hong Kong specifically. And people have lost the sense of, oh, a little bit of hardship is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And I like going out and like finding that line of where the hardship begins and then kind of pushing yourself through it a little bit.
Yeah.
I find it really inspiring. It's what makes me feel alive.
Yeah.
Being uncomfortable in beautiful places.
Yeah.
That's what I live for.
I live for that too. It's amazing. Yeah.
It's okay. So look, Hong Kong's youngest ever climber. You were at K2 this summer. How did that go?
I was, yeah. So I had the primary objective of K2 and Broad Peak. It's the savage mountain, the killer mountain or whatnot, with a very dark history of almost all the females dying on the way of the descent.
Right.
It was a definitely different experience from Nepal.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say. Starting from the start, there was no tea houses, there was no kind of infrastructure. Everything had to be traveled on mules. Everything had to be carried, to base camp, because it was glacier all the way from the start to K2 base camp and Broad Peak base camp.
How high is Broad Peak?
8,050, something around that.
Wow. And you successfully summited that?
I did, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And how was that?
Without
Was
oxygen.
that a tough one? Without oxygen.
Without oxygen as well.
Yeah.
So that was That was an interesting experience, yeah, because that was my first experience without oxygen up to 8,000 meters, and
Well, if your oxygen was actually working at Everest, which we haven't been able to fully figure out.
probably did. I hope I did. I don't
Okay,
know. I think I got stronger over that period of time.
that's good.
I was actually planning on doing them with oxygen,
Okay.
to do Broad Peak and K2 with oxygen, just because I knew that there was associated side effects of hypoxia on the brain. It was supposed to be causing neurological deficits, and I didn't think that the risk were worth it. And then I met these two climbers, one of them from Canada, one of them from Scotland, became good friends with them, and they told me that they've done some 8,000 meter peaks without oxygen, and they don't seem to have any mental problems.
Yeah.
So they told me, they were like, yeah, you're a strong guy, like you should go give it a try. Like,
Okay.
and I was like, sure, let's do it. So I went up there and I felt that it was a very liberating kind of feeling, because like you're not carrying any oxygen, like you're literally using your own human willpower to get up there, and like there was no backup, because I didn't have any oxygen canister, so it was like either I could do it or I couldn't do it.
Right.
So it was kind of like a eye-opening experience, because like there's no backup. You know what I mean? Like if you have extra oxygen canister, if you're struggling, you just pop open that extra oxygen. But going up there, I just felt like stronger and faster. So with one of my Australian friends, and we went up. We were like passing other people. We were going up to the ridge, and an iconic thing about the Broad Peak is that there's a lot of false summits on Broad Peak. So you'll see this kind of summit, and you'll be like, "Oh yeah, I'm like almost at the top," and you'll get there, and you're like, "Oh no, you'll see us another summit."
That's
So that
terrible.
happened for yeah. It's like this emotional roller coaster,
Yeah.
just kind of like taunts you,
Yeah.
like baits you. It's like, hey, you're at the summit. It's like, no,
So you get up to Broad Peak and then you set your sights on K2. And how did K2 go?
K2 didn't go as well as planned. Yeah, um, there was actually some issues with the company that I was with. Some agency problems. We had some disagreements with them,
Okay.
and in the end, we decided to leave. But basically, we were, they were up at the bottleneck, and then we had, fixed ice anchor into the ice, but it was like very cold, so the ice anchor was probably like half in, right? And one of my friends, he was caught in an avalanche. He ended up sliding down around like 30-40 meters.
Jeez, that's scary.
And it was I remember he came out and he was quite traumatized. He was like, okay, like I think I'm gonna go back home.
And you guys all just packed up?
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, I actually wanted to stay. I was like, okay, like I wanna like give it another try and stuff. And then we had like some agency problems. The agency didn't want to stay and stuff. And it was a whole drama issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
But will you go back again?
I think not anytime soon. I
Okay.
think there's definitely other objectives that I would like to achieve.
And when you were at K2, you met my man Max.
I did, yes.
So I filmed Extreme Treks in Argentina when we climbed Aconcagua, and I got to work with Max. And you saw him climbing K2.
Yeah.
That's awesome. He sent me photos from the summit this summer. That's great. You should try to do as much as you can with that man. He is an absolute legend. Seriously,
Sweet.
he's the real deal.
All
He
right.
lives on mountains. He has no other life. Like the man just knows what is going on every day, and it's very reassuring to walk in his footsteps and have him lead. He just loves people who love being outside.
Yeah.
And as long as you love that, you'll get along, no problem. So look, you're from Hong Kong. You had tiger parents that wanted you to be in piano and violin and flutes. You fell in love with rock climbing. You climbed Everest. You're the youngest Hong Kong-born person to summit Mount Everest successfully. And you have a whole life ahead of you. You're in medical school right now?
Yeah.
Studying to be a doctor?
Yeah, hopefully one day.
Trying to figure out what all that low oxygen time is doing to your brain? Do you have any words out there? Do you have any words that you want to say to anyone who might listen to this who is afraid of taking those first steps of doing something risky or something amazing or some dream that they want to try to achieve? Come on, there's some 17-year-old kid that saw you get off the airplane and be the youngest climber, and he's like, I want to be the youngest. I want to go at 18, or I want to do the Annapurna trek, or I want to go to India and do something, but I'm afraid, or I don't know how, or What would you tell that person?
Live a life where you don't regret the decisions that you make. So no matter what, make sure at the end of the day you're happy of those decisions and take the risk because um, when you take the risk, the worst that can happen is that someone rejects you or it doesn't happen. But I think at the end of the day, when you put yourself out there and you make yourself vulnerable, then you give yourself the opportunity to shine and to really take a risk in achieving your dreams.
Okay, so that was my chat with Benjamin Chan. Yeah, what an inspirational young man, and currently in medical school in Hong Kong. He wants to be a doctor, and he is now just studying, remotely online, doing online classes. Because I just chatted with him the other day. But yeah, Benjamin Chan is amazing, and some of the stuff he said in this interview, it's just so mature and it's so well thought out, and his desire to push himself and push people around him is just amazing. I learned a lot from him, and I hope you guys did too. So what do we got? A few things. Expedition Asia is coming out on Discovery Channel this summer in May and June. Follow me on social media for dates and times. The COVID calls are my Instagram live chats with friends and family and other creatives around the world. You can follow those on Instagram or listen to them after the fact on my YouTube channel. And of course, my YouTube channel has a ton of content, including full episodes and behind the scenes of a lot of my television shows. And of course, you've got my podcast now. Yeah, we're all stuck indoors and we're all making content. And I'm just glad I can talk to you guys. So look, that was Benjamin Chan. This is my podcast. And until next time, stay safe and stay healthy, everyone. Thank you.